For those of you that are beginning lawn care, you can do it! Or maybe you're just wanting to take it over for a lawn care service that's been taken over.
Dale, I don't want you to spray my lawn anymore.
Maybe to do things on your own. So one of the reasons why I became a golf course superintendent was because I like to see the fruits of my labor, and I like to kind of look at things and go, hey, look what I did. So I totally get that.
You are the man.
So those of you that are just starting out, this video is for you. I'm going to take you through probably what equipment to start out with, a few things that you will need for your yard in the spring to prepare for summer and to prepare for fall, and some of the key points that you are going to need in order to be successful in starting to take care of your home lawn. This is a learning process, and it's great to learn new things. So let's get started. Of things that people do to the yard is just unnecessary, and it's one of the main focuses of my channel, is trying to give folks the information so that way they can make choices in what they want to or not want to do to their yard. But there is a lot of information out there that quite frankly will waste a lot of time, particularly time, money, and sometimes even damage your yard. Most of the advice I see on YouTube is actually not bad, but there's a lot of over management, so don't let that intimidate you. That's the first thing I will tell you. Second thing I will tell you is, first thing you need to do to your yard is go ahead and take a soil test. I have a soil test video. You can check it out. It will tell you how to take a soil test for your yard. It tells you where your pH is, tells you where your nutrient level is, okay? And the pH is the most important. I go over the specifics in that video. In the description of that video, and I think it's in the comments too. I generally put in the comments and the description. It tells you, it gives you a website exactly where you can get your soil test done for either for free or less than $10, and it is an unbiased soil sample. We'll take a trip to Lowe's and look at maybe some fertilizer spreaders there that are available to you. You have the Stay Green in Lowe's and you have the Scotts. I'm going to say it looks like to me that the settings, here's the advantage with Scotts. I'll tell you about all Scotts. You're going to be hard pressed to find a fertilizer bag that does not have a Scotts spreader setting on it. That is the advantage of going with the Scotts spreader, because you're going to have that on the bag and you're going to be confident when you go out, you're at the right setting. And I tell you, that is the biggest bugaboo that I cannot figure out, is why they don't standardize their spreader settings on the bag. It makes it very confusing for people, and it's frustrating for me that they do that. But that is the advantage of going with the Scotts. These are essentially the same spreader. You have with the Scotts is you have an edge guard, which is the little lever back here that you can turn off and you can turn on. What it does when you're spreading, you turn that on and it doesn't spread to your right. So that way you can go along your landscape beds or any area, or your driveway or any area that you didn't want the product to put on, turn that on and it won't go in that direction. So that's the advantage of going with the Scotts. So generally these are about the same quality. The advantage of going with a smaller spreader, it's closer to the ground, it doesn't throw as far. So that way you're not throwing quite so much in your neighbor's yard. Maybe he has put something down and maybe you throw something over there. The second thing is you can get a little closer to your landscape beds, particularly if you don't want to go with the edge guard, you want to go something more economical, you can get closer to your landscape beds in areas such as that. Disadvantage with going with a smaller spreader, particularly those of you who have a yard that is more than 5,000 square feet, is you may have to fill this up again before you finish your yard. And that can get a little complicated, because now you're putting a product out, you're filling it up where you're at, or you take it back to your driveway, which is what I recommend to do. Always fill up anything that you have on your driveway, your fertilizer spreaders, because if you spill on your yard, you're going to have dead grass. And it's one of the things I always, when I train guys putting fertilizer out on greens or tees, always take the spreader back to the golf cart path and fill up the spreader and take it back in if you ever get in that situation. Actually, I told them to go ahead and fill up the bin before they go on the green or the tee. Anyway, so that's one of the disadvantages of only smaller spreaders, particularly if you have more than 5,000 square feet. You're probably going to have to fill the bin. I guess the middle-sized spreaders. These are for yards that are above 5,000 square feet, probably up to 7,000 square feet. You get above 10,000 square feet, you're going to have to probably go with a much larger spreader. These should hold enough of the product in order to put it out on your yard completely. The Scott's has the Edge Guard, Stay Green, which is the Lowe's brand. I would think Home Depot or anywhere else would have the same deal. They generally are the exact same spreader. The difference with the Scott's is you do have the Edge Guard. These are the dials. And Scott's has pretty much gone with this, and I think it's fairly standard on all their spreaders. This is actually the Stay Green. And basically what you do, you look at the back of the fertilizer bag, okay? So the little chart here, and all you got to do is set it on that spreader setting. Okay, now we're up to a large spreader. Now, a Stay Green, the Lowe's brand, does not have a comparable one to the Scott's Elite. This is a nice spreader. It's got 2 impellers on it, which actually spreads a little bit wider. It does have the Edge Guard, and the convenience of it is the Edge Guard is up here at the top where you don't have to bend down and turn it off and turn it on. It's actually a pretty good spreader. I've had mixed reviews on this online. I don't have this one there. Again, I have a commercial one that I got from a golf course long ago, and I still have it. It'll probably last until the day I die. But it's a $700 spreader. These run about $150. So these do. They're a little bit higher. So anyway, but it does have the Edge Guard. I think the only thing that you would need with this, a spreader this large, is if you had over 10,000 square feet that you were maintaining. Now we have these spreaders, and there's a ton of them on the market. This one just happens to be, I think this one is a Scott's Whiz. I don't recommend these. One, they don't hold nearly enough to do a yard. I don't think they really put out seed very well. I just don't recommend these. Now, what I want to do when I spread, you want the outside of that spreader, when you spread it, to hit the middle part of your last pass. Let me show you.
As I'm going along here, you can see where this blue line is going to be. That's my total width of the first pass. And in my second pass, you can see where this yellow and red line is. And my overlap needs to be in the middle.
A lot of folks like to go out and buy a sprayer. 1 gallon, half gallon, 4 gallon backpack sprayers, what have you. If you're just starting out, I don't recommend doing that. These hose end adapters, these things are very convenient. They're very easy. And if you have a garden hose that reaches all over your yard, they do a great job. This one in particular, I like the config. I'm talking the configuration, not necessarily the product. The configuration of this one particularly is nice because as you pull it across your yard, it's a little easier than this one, because this one has a tendency to jump up and down. And whenever you use these, you really want to keep them at the same level and just go over your yard with them. You have 2 different types of herbicides. And when you're spraying, you generally have, we're talking herbicides. You have post-emergent herbicides and pre-emergent herbicides. Pre-emergent herbicides, you will see weed preventer, you will see season-long control, those types of words. I'll show you a few here. Those are generally pre-emergent herbicides. That is a herbicide you will put on your lawn before the weed germinates. What happens is the weed germinates, that herbicide stays on the soil surface. As soon as that young seed that is very vulnerable germinates, it actually kills the seed almost pretty much same day it germinates. These are post-emergent herbicides, meaning when you see the weed, you can put these down, you can kill the weed. Now, I do have an Amazon storefront. You can check it out, and it does go over what kind of herbicides that you have on here, and you can compare to shop and go to Lowe's. I don't care where you buy it. I just want to help. So anyway, this Spectricide product, I do have this on my Amazon storefront. This controls just about anything. It really does. You cannot put it on St. Augustine or centipede, but everything else you can put it on, which there's very few has St. Augustine and centipede. And if you have any questions, go to my Facebook page, take a picture, send it, put my name on it, Greg Phillips, and it'll prompt me, and I'll take a look and maybe help you out in identifying your grass. I do also have my season start video for those of you who want to know what your ryegrass, bluegrass, tall fescue, particularly full season grass. I show you how to identify it there. Generally, there's a few things about post-emergent herbicides you need to be somewhat careful. 1, you obviously don't want to overtreat. But 2, you cannot seed generally anywhere from minimum 14 days for products that are at Lowe's. I'll give you one exception here. Generally, those that come in these type of adapters, you have to wait 30 days before you can seed after you've applied these spot sprayers. I don't necessarily recommend spot spraying. You have a tendency to over apply when you're spot spraying. Whenever you put these out, if you do indeed use these, you just need to mist the weed. If you happen to break, which I did, I actually used one of these one time. I got the pinch. Had a commercial And I thought, well, I'll just use one of these. The wand broke. And once when the wand breaks, if you have half the product left in there, now what are you going to do? So that's my problem. That's the other problem I have with them is if that wand happens to break and they generally don't work all that great, now what are you going to do? Going a little deeper on how to read labels. And I have a buyer's guide videos. I also have a weed control video. A lot of those weed control videos I do have, for those of you who are just starting out, some level of granular or something easy to put out. I generally include you guys in just about every video that I have. These are two products that control broadleaf weeds. Okay? One is a simple weed and feed. A lot of you have heard weed and feed. This controls broadleaf weeds, and you can seed about 28 days after you apply it. I think it's 28, might be as low as 21, but you have to wait at least pretty much a month before you see it behind it. This one has the word prevents on it. That means it's a weed preventer. It's a pre-emergent herbicide, something we generally put out. Most of you put it out in May to prevent summer weeds. That's the kind of things that you're looking for when you're looking at the tag. It's the word preventer or season-long control. Generally, those are pre-emergent herbicides. So that way you know the difference between the two. So when do you start in the spring with your yard? When you start fertilizing, when can you seed? When you can do all these things? There are some great guidance on using soil temperatures. However, if you just look around, Mother Nature will tell you. This bush right here is called the forsythia. It blooms generally the first thing that blooms in the spring. It gets these brilliant yellow flowers on it. And then those flowers turn over to leaves. And you can see where this one's, here we are, April 2nd. I'm in the mid-Atlantic region. You can see it's already starting to turn green. So it's been now bloomed about 2 weeks ago. That's when you want to start doing your fertilizer applications, because now, as soon as the forsythia start growing, and I believe they grow all over the United States, and you can see them driving along if you don't have one close to your home, that's when you want to start putting your fertilizer out, because that's when your grass is actually going to start to absorb it. One of the major components of fertilizer is nitrogen, and that's that first letter on the fertilizer bag. That can actually leach, can run off in a rain, can actually volatilize into the atmosphere. And if you don't put it down, or if you put it down too early, you're going to lose some of the bang that you put into it, and you're going to lose some bucks because it's either going to leach, run off, or volatilize. So if you do it when forsythia bloom, you'll be good to go. Now, when do you seed? Do you see this tree right there? They come out about a week or two after the forsythia bloom, maybe almost 3 weeks. That's the time you can start seeding. So Mother Nature is telling you when the soil temperatures and things are waking up. Now, there are going to be those that are fairly content with their yard, and then others of you that it needs a lot of work. Let's all stick together here. And even those who need a lot of work, I'm going to tell you how the program is once when you get there. First thing you want to do, you want to put out a pre-emergent herbicide with a fertilizer. Those of you who are content with your yard, you can do that when the forsythias bloom, and that way that'll prevent any more weeds from coming up in the spring. If you have any weeds, I'm going to tell you with the folks who need a lot of work to the yard how to take care of that here in a second. But anyway, when the forsythias bloom is your first application of a fertilizer with a pre-emergent herbicide on it. To go out at a half rate, early spring, maybe even late winter, and then again sometime around the 1st of June, late May. And that gives you good control throughout the summer of crabgrass, goosegrass, etc. For those of you who need work, here's what you do. In my overseeding video, I give you 3 techniques. One technique, if you're just thin, you can go ahead and seed on a dry day, best you can in the spring. Seed over top your grass, drag it in real good, and that should get things to fill in. Second technique is a spot treatment that I go over. I have a special mower blade that you can use that goes over the overseeding video. It makes a nice seed bed. Then the third technique is total renovation. This is what I did in that video last year, put tall fescue on, and it worked out pretty well. And I put it on when I had 6 weeks of drought. So I did have to water the dickens out of it, but that's one advantage of seeding in the spring. Generally, you don't have a problem with water. So that. Then, I mentioned this in the overseeding video, but I'll give you a heads up here. What are you going to do about weeds? You can't put out that Spectricide product when you're seeding. But you can go with the Scott's for Seed product. I saw it at Lowe's the other day. I got it on my Amazon storefront. It is a great product. It has some post-emergent activity on some weeds. It's not the where-all be-all like the Spectricide product that I showed you, but it will control some weeds. Then it will give you 30 days of pre-emergent control, particularly on summer weeds and the weeds that it's controlled on the label. And it also has a starter fertilizer in it. So that's going to give you a good fertilization and the weed control, and it's going to do it for 30 days and give your grass a fighting chance to coming in. After those 30 days, you are probably going to have some weeds come in. What you need to do on your new seedlings, because you're going to be flying in the summer without a pre-emergent herbicide, because it's sketchy to put it out really within 60 days after germination. It gets a little sketchy. You could push the envelope if you want to, but you could possibly do it within 30 days, but I'm not going to advise you to do that. Stick with the 60 if most labels say 60, so stick with the label, okay? Now, what you can do, a little bit of management. Raise your mowing height. Ideally, at least 3 inches. If you could stand 4 inches, go 4 inches. I know that's pretty tall. The taller you cut your grass, the less weed pressure you're going to have, particularly with summer weeds. Under this maple tree, I do not use pre-emergent herbicides. Why? Because in order for crabgrass and a lot of summer weeds to germinate, they have to have sunlight hit the soil. If you do not see nutsedge, you do not see crabgrass, you do not see goosegrass underneath trees. Don't believe me. If you're seeing this in, I don't know, late July, go to a park where you know they haven't used any pre-emergent herbicides and see where the line is from where the crabgrass starts or stops and the shade of the tree starts. So if you cut your grass taller, that will help you get through the summer without too much weeds in your yard. Then when mid-August rolls around, after August 15th, you can go in that Spectricide product, clean everything up, and then get a game plan together for the fall, for a fall seeding. Weed control. Okay, the Spectricide weed stop, also with crabgrass killer, controls nutsedge too. Few things. One, don't mow 2 days before putting out. Don't mow 2 days prior putting out. Reason being is you want the grass, or actually the weed, to be mature enough and the leaves being mature enough in order to accept that herbicide and then keep it there for 2 days afterwards so it's absorbed by the herbicide. That's where people go wrong, because they think, wow, I'm going to mow, then I'm going to put out my weed control. That's not the way to do it with a post-emergent herbicide. Pre-emergent herbicide doesn't make any difference. But anyway, you just got to water it in, by the way, on that pre-emergent herbicide. Follow the label on that. And all herbicides, please read those labels and follow them. Now, also, you don't want any precipitation 24 hours after you put it out. That's ideal. A lot of them say they're fine once when they dry on the leaf blade, but generally, in rule of thumb, 24 hours, no water. Now, for those of you who are happy with your yard, going with a pre-emergent herbicide, this says you can go out at 45 degrees. It's a little low. Okay, clarify on that a little bit. What I would do, I would wait in the spring until you've got a few days where it's 55, 60 degrees for a few days in a row. Maybe one day it's bumped up to 70, then put out your Spectricide weed stop. The reason being is that ensures that the weed is actively growing and will absorb the herbicide. Now, for those of you who are seeding, obviously you cannot put this out in the spring. Your first application of this is probably going to be after August 15th. The other thing about this, it happens every year with this and a lot of other products that have the active ingredient quinaclorac in it. That's what your crabgrass control is in here, okay? Quinaclorac only works on young crabgrass and old crabgrass. It does not work on middle-aged crabgrass. So you'll see all these things online in June of how great this product is and quinaclorac is on crabgrass, and then you'll see people in the same product in July saying it's terrible and it doesn't work. It has no activity on middle-aged crabgrass. That's why you guys who seeded cannot go out in July, because it's not going to do you a whole heck of a lot good. Also, talk about low temperatures. Now we're talking about high temperatures. It says on here, in fact, it says 90 degrees on here. You probably can, because it's that safe of a product. I would be careful when it gets above 85 degrees. Cool season grasses, generally, when it gets above 85, they kind of start shutting down. They really aren't all that happy. So, when the daytime temperatures are going above 85, just wait to put it out. It's not worth the risk. And now that should control you as far as post-emergent control on your yard for weeds. Using your spectricide weed stop. First thing you need to do is you measure your yard. Now, this does not have to be down to the nearest square inch or square foot for that matter. You just need to get a very general idea. For example, in this yard, I would go down the asphalt. That would be my length. Then I would go probably to the driveway to the corner of the house. That would be my width. That would give me the square footage of the front yard. Then I would do the same thing to the side. Then I'd do the same thing to the back and simply add. And if you had another little length of yard on the other side, that's another box. So on this one, you might make maybe 3 boxes. And on yours, you may do the same thing. That'll give you your total square footage. Spectricide weed stop goes out at 5,000 square feet. One container covers 5,000 square feet. Now, if the first time you spray it, you want to get an idea of exactly how much 5,000 square foot is, so you kind of get a vibe for, okay, do I need to walk slower or need to walk faster? It is going to vary. I'd love to give you a time, but it's going to vary depending on the pressure of your hose, okay? And I'm going to demonstrate here. This is actually me calibrating an orthodontic spray using water, not putting out pesticide on asphalt, obviously. But it gives you an idea what's going to look like when it goes out on your yard. And I'm also giving you an idea of what you need to overlap. And you really only need to overlap about a foot. We don't want to overlap as much as we do when we put out when we put out fertilizer, like I showed earlier. Just maybe a foot of your last pass. It's going to probably give you, if you're an average sized person, probably around 6 foot width by the time it hits the ground. Okay. Then the other thing you need to do before you start, bring your hose, like the hose is over here on the corner of the house. Okay, and I want to bring that hose all the way out. All the way out. And I want to know, for example, like this corner, I want to be able to make sure that that hose meets that corner. It can reach that corner. It's kind of like a batter at a batter's box. He touches the corner of the base to make sure he can cover the whole base. That's what you need to do prior to putting it out. Make sure your hose, so you're not fighting with it and you're not going back and forth and then trying to figure out where your last pass was. Extend it to the longest point, then make your first pass and work your way towards where the hose is. That makes it a lot simpler, because if you're going the other way, now you're yanking the hose all the time, and that makes it much more difficult. Anyway, don't sweat this too much. You just get a good idea. Once when you've done it once or twice, you'll have it down and you'll do just great. Insect control, particularly grub control. Grub really do a number on a yard, because by the time you see the damage, it's too late, and that damage generally occurs in the summer where there's not a whole lot you can do once when you have it. So I recommend the Scott's Grub EX. It has the active ingredient chlorotrinilapole in it. It is a very safe insecticide. I go over this more in my grub video on the specifics of this product, but I'm telling you, you want to put this out in May to prevent grubs from really being a problem in the summer. If you have problems with grubs after July 15th, you want to use the BioAdvance 24-hour grub control product. I have both of those on the Amazon storefront, and generally you can get them at your local store. Fall. Those of you who are pool players, and I play pool too, you usually have a shot and you're trying to get the ball in position to make your next shot. That's what fall management is in turf grass. What you do in the fall is going to dictate what you're going to look like in the spring. It's what you're going to dictate next summer. One, what kind of grass you want to put in. There again, tall fescue ryegrass, I kind of like it a little bit more than blue. I go over in my seed selection video exactly specific to that. You can check that out and see. When do you want to seed? Generally after Labor Day. I actually, here in the Mid-Atlantic, I actually had a golf course call me in and I redid some greens for them. But quite honestly, they lost during one summer. I seeded them on Labor Day, and by really Halloween, they were putting on them. So if you have a good, and Mother Nature helped, plus an irrigation system that helped too. But anytime after Labor Day, you can probably start thinking about seeding. Now, as far as the most critical element of fall, fertilization. We want to go ahead and fertilize about the time we seed, or if you don't need to seed, you want to fertilize right after the summer temperatures get down after Labor Day. That will be your first application. Most of you will put out, about all of you will put out probably about a pound per 1,000 square feet. Second application, you can put out a half pound if you really want to push it, particularly if you have bluegrass. Probably go out with either a half pound or a full pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet, probably sometime, depending on your line of latitude, around Halloween, maybe just prior to. The reason why fall fertilization is so critical. It brings up the sugars in the plant and helps you with spring green up, and it really thickens things up and gets it going during this for next spring into next summer. So you can start your pre-emergent program and you don't have to worry about seeding. I'm going to go over fungus real quick because there's a lot of people that put out fungicides and they don't have fungus. It's usually something else, particularly if you have tall fescue. That's why I like tall fescue, because you generally don't have a whole lot of fungus in tall fescue. You can in rye and definitely in blue. I'm not shaming blue, it's just more management, and it's not a good grass for a newbie in my opinion. You have basically the handheld, and just about all those are a fungicide called propicanosol. And they go out well. It's a very broad spectrum fungicide, but it doesn't control one fungus, which is Pythium, and the Scott's fungicide does. So what I would recommend as far as fungus, go to my Facebook page and become a member of it. And you can take a picture if you have something going on with your yard. I'm on there. There's 3 or 4 other guys on there. I think a landscape guy. There's 2 or 3 other people that actually are very good contributors, and they can usually diagnose what you have. You can take a few pictures of it. I also have a fungicide video. Once when you get going, you can check it out. I show you how to go out and actually scout and know if you have fungus or not. There's a lot of people that put out fungicides and they just don't have a fungicide. It's usually something else. It's either the dog peed on it, or it's dry, or something else happened. So I'm not discouraging you from doing fungicide. I just don't want you putting anything out. One, waste your money putting anything out in the environment that's just not there. And then, or using the wrong fungicide that's not controlling what you have and wasting time, money, and everything else. So anyway, that's pretty much it. Hope this helps a lot. This is not that hard. And quite honestly, people online make it harder than what it is. And it's not. So anyway, you can do this. Hey, I'm Agronomist Greg Phillips. Like and subscribe. I have a whole bunch more videos, and you can check the ones I've already done out. And we'll work on this journey and get you better and better and better as the years go on. So anyway, good luck.